Good evening. Tonight, we turn to one of the most politically charged issues in America's economic debate: gas prices, oil, and the claim that any president, especially Donald Trump, can simply order prices at the pump to fall. It is a powerful message on the campaign trail and a popular talking point in moments of public frustration. But the reality is more complex, and in the United States, gas prices are shaped by a web of forces far larger than any single speech, slogan, or executive order. Donald Trump returned to office promising American energy dominance, reviving his familiar language of drill, baby, drill, and signaling from day one that he wanted to maximize U.S. oil and gas production. The political message was clear: produce more energy at home, weaken foreign leverage, and bring down costs for American consumers. But in Trump's first 100 days, Reuters reported that U.S. oil prices had already slumped by more than 20%, falling to around $60 a barrel, below the level many producers say they need to earn money. That is the first paradox of the oil business. Lower oil prices may sound like good news for drivers, but if prices fall too far, oil companies pull back on drilling, investment, and hiring. And that is exactly where the story becomes more complicated. Reuters also reported in April 2025 that U.S. crude had fallen to near $55 a barrel, down from about $78 before Trump's inauguration. Many companies said they cannot drill profitably below roughly $65 a barrel. At the same time, Trump's tariff agenda was increasing the cost of steel and drilling equipment, making new production more expensive even as oil prices were falling. In other words, the administration was urging producers to drill more while market conditions were pushing them to slow down. That contradiction matters, because America's oil sector does not operate on political enthusiasm. It operates on margins, risk, and investor confidence. So what actually drives gas prices in the United States? According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the biggest component in the price of gasoline is crude oil itself. But that is only the beginning. Americans also pay for refining, distribution and marketing, and taxes. The federal gasoline tax alone is 18.4 cents per gallon, and as of January 2026, average state taxes and fees added another 33.55 cents per gallon. Refining capacity, seasonal fuel blends, regional supply bottlenecks, and local competition all play a role as well. So when politicians imply that the price on the gas station sign is controlled directly from Washington, they are simplifying a market that is global, regional, and highly sensitive to disruption. Now let us look at the actual numbers. EIA says the average U.S. retail price for regular gasoline in 2025 was $3.10 per gallon, down 21 cents from 2024. That marked the third straight year of declining average gasoline prices. The high for 2025 came in early April at $3.24 per gallon, still below the 2024 high of $3.67. By late December, the national average had fallen to 2.81 cents. The reasons were not political theater. EIA says lower crude oil prices, driven by oversupply concerns and a weaker global economic outlook, were the main reason gasoline became cheaper on average. That is a reminder that U.S. drivers live in a market influenced not only by the White House, but by OPEC decisions, global demand, refinery tightness, and geopolitical shocks. Regional differences tell another truth that national politics often ignores. In 2025, EIA says the annual average retail gasoline price ranged from just $2.39 per gallon on the Gulf Coast to $4.32 on the West Coast. That gap is enormous, and it shows why blanket promises about gas prices can be misleading. Geography matters. State taxes matter. Fuel specifications matter. Refinery access matters. A president may influence the regulatory environment, encourage domestic production, or pressure allies abroad. But he does not set the same pump price for Texas, California, Florida, and New York. America is one country, but in energy economics, it often behaves like several different markets at once. There is also a political myth worth confronting directly. More drilling does not always mean immediately lower prices for consumers. Reuters reported that U.S. producers were already pumping around 13.4 million barrels per day in April 2025, and were expected to pump 13.5 million barrels per day in 2025, even as growth forecasts were being cut. Yet companies were still slowing new drilling because investor confidence had weakened and lower prices threatened profitability. If oil companies fear that tariffs, trade tensions, or global oversupply will crush prices further, they do not automatically expand just because a president asks them to. In the oil industry, supply is not driven by slogans. It is driven by whether the next well makes financial sense. So where does that leave Donald Trump's message on gas prices and oil? Politically, it remains powerful because voters experience inflation personally, and nothing is more visible than the number on a gas station sign. But economically, the picture is much harder to control. Trump can shape policy, signal support for fossil fuels, expand approvals, and pressure markets rhetorically. What he cannot do is erase the laws of supply, demand, global trade, refining constraints, or corporate balance sheets. The evidence from 2025 shows that even a pro-oil administration can face falling crude prices, weaker drilling incentives, and conflicting market signals at the very moment it promises energy dominance. In the end, the real story is not whether Donald Trump talks tough on oil. It is whether policy can align with market reality. And on that question, the early evidence is clear. Gas prices in America are not simply a presidential switch that can be turned up or down. They are the product of global oil prices, domestic refining, taxes, logistics, and confidence across the energy industry. That may be less satisfying than a campaign slogan. But for American voters, and for anyone trying to understand what really moves the cost of living, it is the truth that matters most.